All right, today is going to be episode 3 on this 604. We run into a little snag, so hang loose and we're going to get into it. All right, so the customer got a new pan that is a shorter pan than the original one, and it come with a pickup tube, but most stuff runs a 5/8 pickup tube, 5/8 diameter where it goes in the pump, and they had they sent a 3/4 pickup tube, but it was the same design, it was just a bigger tube. So I just used the old one and we stuck it on and checked the clearance to the bottom of the pan, and this one measures 6.5 and the pan measures 6.5, so obviously that won't work. Actually, this was just maybe a 1/16 actually taller than that, so it would physically touch the bottom of the pan. So we're gonna have to get another pickup tube, but what we're gonna do is go ahead and finish up the heads and try to get all that on in this episode. Hopefully we can get the whole entire top end wrapped up. That way the only thing we'll be waiting on is the pickup tube, and we can just swap it out right quick and pop the pan on it and send him on his way. So hang loose and we'll get the heads and all set up and we'll start assembling that stuff. All right, so we just cleaned and blasted the heads. We didn't really, they were in good shape. We didn't really need to do anything to them. Andrew touched up the seats. The 45s look really nice, so he just bumped them all. And we had put from last time, because this thing had, from when we got it the first time, it had dropped some valves and made a mess out of some stuff. So we put a whole fresh set of valves in, so the valves look really good. And we just, done the heads, surfaced them, and touched up the valve job. But they're to the minimum dimension. There's a CC dimension on these heads, and they've been shaved pretty much all they can. So we're not gonna, they're flat, but we're not gonna shave them again. But one thing on these, if you're familiar with this crate engine deal, the early 604s and the 603s had a straight spring. The late 604s had a beehive spring. So when this thing got here, it had beehive springs on it, but it didn't come that way. And when we pulled the heads apart, I figured out what happened. So, and again, it was me not catching it, but I don't do tons of these things, so it's not fresh in my mind always. And I'm so used to seeing LSs, and a lot of LSs are like this. So that's how I didn't catch it, but come over here. So let me grab a spring. And these are our pack springs for this engine. So this spring seat is what was in the engine, and this is the spring seat that was supposed to be in the engine. And the difference is, if you can see, so it's not square, right? It's got where they formed that piece of sheet metal, it's got a really big radius right there. So if you put the spring on it, it just, if you put it up there, it looks pretty good. But if you fill it, it doesn't actually fit. The spring is sitting on that radius right there. So when I took the head apart, I noticed several of them were broke. And I'm scratching my head, I'm like, man, why is the spring seat broke? And then the ones that wasn't broke, when I actually felt it, I could see that it wasn't actually sitting flat. The spring was actually sitting on that. So, but then if the actually machined one that's supposed to be on it, plus it's a little thicker, so it'll give us some more spring pressure, but it fits really tight in the spring and it'll sit flat in the spring. So that one was 100% my boo-boo, but that's just a FYI if you are fooling with these, to just, make sure somebody hadn't swapped from a straight spring to a beehive spring and not changed all the components involved, because the whole package is different. The retainer's different, the spring seat's different, the spring's different, the locks are the same, but other than that, it's all different. So hopefully that'll save somebody else from making a little boo-boo. But it didn't hurt anything. It just, but it coulda, you know, if some of those pieces had got loose in the motor, it coulda made a mess. But I have tested all the spring pressures and everybody's good. So pretty much we're just gonna straight reassemble the heads with all the components that we got, with fresh seals and these new correct spring seats, and we'll be back in action. Let me get the head stand swung around here and get my compressor all set up, and we'll start putting these things together. And these heads use all hollow stem valves. They super light, but man, they expensive. I think these valves are like $55 a piece. I think one of them's 55 and the other one's like 45. They crazy high. And they're kind of like a LS. They don't have a lot of margin. So, I mean, you might can grind them once or twice, but you're not gonna grind them much because they just ain't much air. And they limit you on your spring pressure, so you know you got to be careful. Everything you grind and move, you losing pressure. So they kind of got you. Some tracks will let you get by with more than other tracks, but I'll throw it in the floor. Usually I'm the other way, and I got me a little stool I lay all my pieces out on, but it's easier if I bring it around here when I'm doing this stuff on camera. Oh, here comes the rain again. All right. All right, that's one together. I'll pop this other one together off camera, and then we'll bring you back when we get ready to set them on. So we got the heads on, got the heads torqued. We're just going through the firing order, putting the rockers on and setting the preload. So what I normally do is, you know, I just go in the firing order, get the cam on the base circle, and then you just do 90-degree turns and then just run through the firing order. So I will half a turn, so I'll go, you know, 3/4 of that half a turn, and then I'll run my set screw down, and then we'll, like that. That way, you know, we got some tension on that set screw. Because, you know, with drag race stuff, we'd have a stud girdle and all that jazz, but you can't run a stud girdle on all this nonsensical crate engine garbage. Six. Mm-hmm. I think we're gonna finish everything today, but we're still waiting on the correct oil pump pickup to fit that new pan, so it's probably gonna be next week before we get that in here, it looks like. All right, so that's the valve adjustment. And that should put us back on number 1 right there. So still need to stick the balancer on, but I'm not gonna do that till we get the pan on, just in case something crazy. So I guess give us a minute and we're gonna get everything set up and we'll get ready to set the intake on. And that'll pretty much hem it up till we get the right stuff for the oil pan. So hang loose. All right, so what I normally do is we'll lay the gasket on and we'll just put a little silicone around the water ports, and that way I can align the gasket to the bottom of the intake ports and then glue it in place with I just use bolts and washers just to pinch it, and then that way once it tacks up, then we can just pull the bolts off and then the intake gasket's in place and it'll stay there, and then all we got to do is just glue the China rails and set it on. That's about $5 worth of silicone. Ta-da. I guess we'll grab this intake. missing one somewhere. I'd look in the box. I'm sure it's here. Maybe, hopefully. We found the missing bolt. It wasn't missing after all. Alright, so all we need to do is set the valve covers on, and I mean, it's pretty much done other than the oil pan. So, oh, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll get this fuel pump. I don't know, some people on YouTube may follow our Facebook, but the customer come over here and look at this. They had this bolt broke off or something in the block. And so the fuel pump plate was leaking oil bad, and they were at a race or something. And so they tried to drill it out or easy out, or I don't know, but some kind of way they ended up making this hole or a hole and a half a hole, and the bolt was still broke off in here, and then the tap or easy out was broke off in it. So we finally got all that mess out of there. And this hole broke into this hole, so it ruined the threads. So I had to drill it all the way through out the back to have room to get new threads in it. So now we got new threads in it, so it's salvageable, right? So we just had to put a long bolt in here to be able to get to the threads back there. But it's got, you know, probably a ½ inch worth of threads in the block back here, so there's no issue. It's just gonna take a long bolt now. But we was able to salvage it, but I was getting worried there to start with whether or not it was gonna make it. So we'll put just a little bit of silicone, cause especially around this area, cause there's not a lot of, you know, there's so many holes right there. It's not a lot of sealing area for that little old thin gasket, and the plate is just sheet metal, you know, so I could see a lot of problems happening there. I'll put the rod in, and then we're gonna put our plate on, our plate gasket. And then we're probably gonna have to dig up some new bolts altogether, probably. I'll just stick one in there to hold it in place. Where's some calipers in there? How long a bolt do I need? So we're gonna need like 1 inch. So let me go grab a couple of new bolts, and I'll be right back. Stick some bolts in these 3/8 holes just to make sure the plate's lined up. And then, yep. So that should take care of that. We'll let that set up. We can stick the valve covers on it. We got a new gasket somewhere. There we go. All right, so I think that will conclude this episode. Once we get the pickup for the oil pan, we'll get that. We'll do a last episode, get that on, get the balancer on, and there's some drive system for the power steering pump, all that jazz. We'll get all that bolted on and the fuel pump, and this thing will be ready to go. So, yep. So that's it. We will see you as soon as that stuff comes in. We appreciate you watching. Thanks so much.